Fueled by Deathcast.
iLead. It's an acronym, 5-letter acronym. International Leadership, Entrepreneurial Development, Arts, and Design Thinking. And those are kind of the 5 pillars of the way we do education.
My name is Amber Raskin, and I am founder and CEO, founder of iLead Schools and CEO of iLead Schools Development.
And I'm Dawn Evenson. I'm founder of iLead Schools and CEO of iLead California.
Wow. So can we talk a little bit, can we start at the beginning? Can we talk a little bit about finding this school? Because I've been talking to so many facilitators and learners and parents since I've been here, and I've never had a more mind-blowing experience at this school. It's just so eye-opening and so amazing. And to be able to talk to you two who started the whole thing, can we talk about how this came to be?
I was moved to Santa Clarita from Los Angeles for the community and the schools. And when I started, my daughter went to, my daughter's the older one and my son is 2.5 years younger than her. And we went to a very developmentally appropriate, philosophically aligned preschool that was just perfect for us. And they were having hands-on experiences where they were exploring and learning exactly the way I think learning should be, which is engaging fun. And you can learn without even knowing you're learning by having fun, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was happening really nicely at that preschool. When we got to kindergarten, it was a whole different ballgame. We went to the district school near us, and it was a very good school, still is a very good school, considered one of the best in the state by traditional standards. But to me, it felt like there was far too much focus on the test. And this wasn't just that school, this is the whole
public school system.
In the whole world, not even the country, not even just the country. And so I thought, wow, being somebody who didn't do well in school myself, I saw what was going to happen to my daughter because in kindergarten, I was told that she asked too many questions. At the parent-teacher conference, I was told that. And I thought, wow, looking at what was going on in the classroom, they were not going to foster creativity, which mattered so much to me. Being told that you're asking too many questions, in my opinion, shuts that down. Yeah. And so I thought, wow, I really need something different. So I started looking around and I couldn't find anything. And so I thought, well, let me be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And a little naively said, let's start a charter school. And I say naive because I didn't know at the time they didn't have things called suburban choice. They didn't think charter schools were supposed to go into suburban areas where schools were doing really well by the measures the state has put out. So I kept looking around and then decided to start this charter school based on a few different schools that I'd seen throughout the state. Wound up saying, why not just open a school for all, a public school for all, instead of going and spending my money on private school or homeschooling that's only going to benefit my kids. And that was about 13 years ago in the planning process, and 11 years ago our first school opened. And one piece that I often talk about is my late mother-in-law, who passed away a few years ago. She used to ask me after we opened the first school, why do you keep going? You started SCVI, your kids are covered, why do you keep going? And I say, well, it was never about me or my kids. It was never about just us. If I was only going to take care of just our kids, there were a lot of other much easier options. Yeah. And the reason I keep going is because of my experience in school. I didn't do well in school. I went to a very good school district and school also, and as did my kids in the early years of before our school was started. And in junior high and high school, I fell through the cracks. I tested into mentally gifted minors in elementary school, but when I got to junior high and it was a project that I didn't do well on, I started to feel not connected. I just never found my niche. I never found my passions. I never felt like anything that I did was meaningful. But then when I got out of school, and even when I worked during high school and college, I did well at work. There was something at work that was very different. It felt real, felt meaningful. I think I had more autonomy, definitely more respect. And then when I got into television, I did very well very quickly in my career there. I was looked at as an A there, where I wasn't in school. And so when I got to my daughter and I saw very quickly the same pattern was going to happen with her, I said, not again. I'm not going to let that happen again to her. And now I keep going because I don't want any 8th grader to feel the way I felt at that time. So that's what motivates me to keep going, and what made us a success is Dawn.
As you can tell, this is really deeply personal work for both of us. We wouldn't have lasted this long if there wasn't a strong why behind it, and if it didn't start with who we are as people. So that's why when we tell our stories, we talk not only about the organization that we've started, but we talk about who we are and how we got here, because that why is super important. I am one of those people that always knew that I wanted to be an educator, like from birth. In fact, it was weird to me that people grew up not knowing what they wanted to do. Like, I taught my stuffed animals, they did really great. I knew I was going to be a rock star at this. I spent hours honing my craft before I even entered school. So when I did enter school, it wasn't so great for me, mostly because I always looked at it from the being a school personnel, like being in the school and being a teacher. And I knew who was really great at what they did and who was not connected with the kids. And that was kind of pivotal for me. So I went through school just kind of hit in the middle. I was kind of like your C student. I always knew that I could do better, but it really didn't seem worth it to me. Like, why put out all that extra energy when it's not something that's, you're passionate about? So I went to college, of course, and graduated. And I grew up in North Idaho. And in order to get a job there, you have to wait for somebody to die. And one thing I'm not very patient. So I moved down to Southern California and I got my first teaching position. And I taught for 13 years. And I was happy, super happy. It was fantastic. I could go in and shut my door and do what I wanted with the kids, and what I could respond to what they were interested in. I could respond to what they needed. And that was really important. And that's the art of teaching. The science is always there, but the art of teaching is being able to respond and keep kids engaged. So I was doing that for 13 years. So somewhere along the line towards, year 10, my principal called me in and he was talking to me and he said, "Have you ever thought about going into administration?" And I said, "Why would I want to do that?" And he said, "Because then you can make the impact that you're making on your class with more people." And I said, "Oh, okay." But that was great, because that's the kind of person I am. I'm like, all right, get out of our way. We're going to make a difference here. So my superintendent came and he said, "Have you ever considered going to middle school?" Now, keep in mind, I'd always been like a primary grade teacher, and my school was a K-6, and I was, again, happy as a clam. And I said, "No, why would I want to go to middle school?" Because, we all know they're a little bit crazy there. And, and so, he said to me, "Well, because then you can do what you're doing here, but on a bigger level." And I said, "Oh," and I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. So in this period of time that I was the principal at a middle school, I also had 3 teenage girls, and a couple of them are middle school. So it kind of made sense. Everything was nutty at that point. Everything was chaos, right? But my oldest daughter was getting ready to graduate from high school. And you get measured for your cap and gown. So I was taking her to get measured for her cap and gown at her high school, which is in a different district. It's an international baccalaureate high school. And one thing you should know about my daughter is that she was always deemed highly successful. She was graduating with a 4.3 GPA. She lettered in 3 varsity sports, which, to make a sports team at a high school of 4,000 kids is difficult in itself. Yeah. And we always got letters that deemed her successful, superintendent's list and the dean's list and all these kinds of things. So she was deemed highly successful. Unlike her mother, let me point out, because I was just that C. I'm just going to cruise along that C. She was jumping through every hoop she possibly could to be the best that she could. So I'm driving her to go and get her gown. And she was getting a yellow gown instead of the blue gown, because the yellow gown is for those kids that they've sorted and selected into the higher ranks. And I turned to her and I said, "Oh, Emily, I am so proud of you." And she turned to me and she said, "I don't know why." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she said, "I just learned to give the teachers back what they wanted." And in that moment, it hit me. It still hits me a little bit. In that moment, it hit me because here was a successful child who was deemed highly successful and had no idea who she wanted to be and who she was. All she knew was how to win at the game of school.
Yeah.
And I was part of that problem. I was part of that problem as her mother, and I was part of that problem as an educator. So let me breathe for a second. Okay, now my voice can be normal. And so, and I did what anybody would do in that moment that cares about education and cares about their kids. I had a mini midlife crisis. I don't believe in suffering, so it only lasted for a week, and it went like this. I'd go to the crazy middle school, and I'd work with those kids all day, and I'd feel crazy, and I knew I had to hold it together because I couldn't be crazy. And then I would go home, and I would cry, and my husband would say, I just want you to be happy, whatever it takes to be happy. So then I would get on the internet, after everybody went to bed, finished their homework, I'd get on the internet, and I'd Google things like, what happens if you love education and you hate schools? And this was 2008, so there wasn't a lot of out-of-the-box articles out there, so I wasn't really hitting or finding my tribe or my people. But what did happen was I came across a posting for a founding charter school principal. So I'm like, I wonder what this is. So I emailed the email on this posting and said, I don't know if you filled this position yet, but I'm interested in finding out more. And then I got up to leave the computer, and a message came back to me, not like an instant reply, but like a real true message, because at the other end of that computer was Amber, who was looking for someone to be able to run her school.
I was saying to the computer, apply. So I didn't have anybody.
And the reply said, we haven't filled it, we're still interested. Please send us your resume and cover letter. I met with Amber and the rest of the board, and then they decided to hire me. And then we ended up at charter school boot camp for a week with each other. We were each other's roommates. And we were finishing each other's sentences, even though we really didn't know each other. And people kept saying, are you sure you guys don't know each other? And we would say no. So for your listeners, your viewers, whatever they're called, I would say that if you find someone that is finishing your sentences when you really don't even know them, and you've taken that leap of faith, and this was something that was definitely meant to be. And so from there, we moved forward, and we started our first school with, I think we had about 75 kids on the first day, and we ended with 135. So we knew that what we were doing had really caught on.